Hello and welcome to the Our Giant Leap podcast presented by the Space Generation Advisory Council. Our Giant Leap discusses diversity, equality, and inclusion issues within the global aerospace industry. My name is Laura, and today we present you a different format of what we are used to. Indeed, no guest today, but an invitation into the world of cinematography with the great documentary Mercury 13, directed by David Sington and Heather Walsh, released in 2018. During 1 hour and 18 minutes, it retraces the story of the Mercury 13 project, launched in 1961, and about the first female American pilots subjected to extensive tests during the star race. You can imagine that at that time, very few women were employed in the aerospace sector. The movie accurately starts with an empowering quote. Someone has to start the fight to change the opinion. Someone has to lead the way. Then, we see the portraits of previous female pilots talking about their love of airplanes and adventures. As it was not so frequent to have women in this field, they exaggerated the so-called female characteristic by flying wearing dresses, jewels, makeup, and high heels. This was a great advertisement for their presence in the clouds. Right after, the movie gives us a chronology of the space exploration, starting by Sputnik and presenting the Mercury project born in 1958, the first manned missions. Emphasis on man. As you may know, the criteria for becoming an astronaut at that time were the following. You needed to graduate of a Navy or Air Force test pilot school, have 1,500 hours of flight time, be qualified in jet aircraft, have an engineering background, and measure 5 feet 11 or less. In the movie, you can see that 32 candidates reported to the Lovelace Clinic in New Mexico for physical examinations. For this experimentation, NASA had chosen Dr. Lovelace, always involved in airplanes and space. Then, we learned that Lovelace felt strongly about having women astronauts and wanted to compare their results to the men's ones. So, in 1960, the Women in Space study begins recruiting test subjects. So, 25 US female pilots took part in a private experimentation to test their ability to be astronauts. These women went through the same medical tests as the Mercury astronauts and scored very well. Some better than their male acolytes. You understood it, 13 were chosen, and they are the ones that we later called the Mercury 13. Among them, we can cite Jerry Cobb, Wally Funk, Rhea Waltman, B. Stedman, and Jeremy Hart, who are interviewed, or their family, through the documentary. The first one being asked, Jerry Cobb, wonders, why is there a need for women in space? It is the same as why is there a need for men in space. If we're going to send a human being in space, we should send the most qualified. And in certain areas, women have a lot to offer. And in other areas, men do. Indeed, during the first 5 days of testing, they underwent medical and physical experiments like the sense deprivation chamber. You are basically immersed in the dark in a tank full of water with no surrounding sounds and need to stay as long as you can. Some women passed the test and some men couldn't take it. She was right. You should hire the most qualified, and it is not necessarily the male candidate. Jerry Cobb, talking about her experience, related that it was quite relaxing. She stayed there 9 hours and 30 minutes, whereas other people started to have hallucination after 3 hours. No wonder she found it relaxing when we see the mental burden women have to suffer. The third part of the experiment was flying jets, but a problem occurred. We learned that NASA heard about the program and cancelled the last experiment. Even though Dr. Lovelace brought the test showing that women did better than men in some areas, NASA confirmed they did not want any women in space. At that time, we need to put it in context, as you imagine well that this law has changed. The documentary brings us to July 1962, when the Mercury 13 women took their program to Congress, as Jerry Cobb regrets. It is inconceivable to me that only men go out there. As for the other ones interviewed, we have Jenny Hart. Miss Hart, you're the mother of 8 children. Do you think it will be difficult for a woman astronaut to also have a family? And she retorts, I've accomplished raising them and many hours of flight and helping my husband in his campaign, so I've proved that I made use of my time outside of family. Jerry Cobb again, Miss Cobb, do you think women are being discriminated against in the space program? And she, I don't think necessarily they are being discriminated against. I think that the rules have been established to where it makes it impossible for women to meet the qualification for astronauts. Well, let's just go back in time a second. How surprising! At that time, women were not allowed to fly military jets. Wait, what did we say previously about the qualification needed to be an astronaut? Graduate of a Navy or Air Force test pilot school, be qualified in jet aircraft. It seems that the rules have indeed been established where it makes it impossible for women to meet the qualification for astronauts. Let's hear what John Glenn, a Mercury mission astronaut, said in favor of the Women in Space program. It's just a fact. The men go off and fight the wars and fly the airplanes and come back and help design and build and test them. The fact that women are not in this field is a fact of our social order. Seems that John Glenn wasn't a feminist either. Although it seems so unrealistic to send women into space for the Americans, we must acknowledge that during the same time period, the Russians sent the first female astronaut, Valentina Tereshkova, in 1963. And I would like to add that she was alone on a solo mission. A woman, alone, in space. How incredible! Finally, another male astronaut of the Mercury mission is interviewed about women in space, Gordon Cooper. I think it is this answer that struck me the most the first time I saw the movie, and it is the reason why I want to advocate every day for equality in our modern world. The journalist asked him a fair question. The Russians have put up a woman cosmonaut. Is there any room in our space programs for a woman astronaut in your opinion? And Gordon Cooper replies, we could have used a woman on the second orbital Mercury Atlas that we had, and flown her instead of the chimpanzee. Wow! Anyways, to end on a more positive note, the movie finishes with a glimpse of the space history for women after the Mercury 13 project. For example, the fact that the US Air Force opened the position for pilots in 1976 after the first women took the test to prove they could do it. And finally, we are following the steps of Eileen Collins, the first woman to pilot the space shuttle in 1995 and who was legitimately inspired by the Mercury 13 women. I don't want to spoil you the emotional ending, so I let you discover it by yourself, but I would like to add something that is not in the movie and that is really poetic. Even though Wolifant could never have flown into space because she was born too soon, in a time period not auspicious to gender equality, she flew on July 20th, 2021 with Blue Origin's New Shepard. She was age 82 and became the oldest person to fly to space, exceeding John Glenn's record. As a reminder, it is the same John Glenn who said, "The fact that women are not in this field is a fact of our social order." See, even at 82, she could prove him wrong. I want to finish by repeating what we always say in our podcasts. Please don't listen to anyone who tries to break your dreams for the wrong reasons. If I did that, I would never have become an engineer, never had the chance to study at the European Astronaut Center, never pursued my dream to work with advanced materials in space. I was inspired by women like the Mercury 13 ones, and I'm pretty sure they'll inspire you too. Thanks for listening. For more information and resources, please visit the Diversity and Gender Equality Project Group website as part of the Space Generation Advisory Council. I am your host, Laura, signing off.